Hey, welcome back to Our Sisters Corner podcast.
I'm Kenyatta.
And I'm Diamond here at Our Sisters Corner, where we're bridging the gap between literature and healing.
We are so excited to be back with another episode today. And guys, we have so much to talk about. So many things.
Yes, this is our final review for Red Lip Theology by Miss Candice Marie Bimbo. Candice,
We're going to have to get you on the podcast, homegirl, because you said a lot. You said a lot of things.
the things, okay? And listen, we really, you did your big one.
Yes.
I'm just gonna say that.
So I want to start off. I want to read the entire title of the book.
Okay.
Because I think we need to just understand what we're diving into today with this conversation.
Yes.
So the complete title is actually Red Lip Theology for church girls who's considered tithing to the beauty supply store when Sunday morning isn't enough.
Yes. So, how are you feeling after this read?
I feel great. Honestly, I feel empowered. Just finishing the book, I feel very empowered.
Yes. I feel very seen, very triggered in a great way.
Definitely triggered.
And I feel very transformed after reading this. You
I
know,
love that.
we say here that we're bridging the gap between healing and literature. Let me tell you something about the healing part. It's rough sometimes.
We didn't say it'll be beautiful, though. We didn't say it'll be beautiful. We are expecting the punches and all the ugly.
But I am thankful that we read this book. I'm thankful that we picked this book, and we can't wait to share this information. So let's really get into it, okay? Yes.
Okay.
So jumping right into it, let's get into our favorite parts of the book or our favorite quotes. Okay, you want to go first or?
Okay, I can start us off.
Okay. And we will be grabbing our book during this episode because, of course, we got to read straight from the word.
Straight from the word.
Of Candice. As Candice dives into the word of the Most High and her experience with doing so and, you know, putting that into her life, we definitely don't want to miscrew any of her words and be clear on the information we want to clarify.
Yes. So I actually have many favorite quotes out throughout the book, and if you look in our books now, you see that we went crazy with the highlighters. There was so much said. So one of my favorite quotes is, "Truth be told, if anyone asked me to describe God in human form, I would describe my mama. She gave me life and saved it 1,000 times over, nurtured me through correction and compassion. In my life, she is God enfleshed. On some level, I have always understood God as a woman, as a black woman." And I can end the quote right there.
Why was that your favorite quote?
I mean, because it's so true. Like, when we think about it, and we talked about this earlier, the first person, you know, God is our mother to us. You know, she is the one that brought us into the world and the one that helped shape so many beliefs and ideas that we have about ourselves and this world. And and I feel the same way that she feels about her mother. Just, you know, has so much love and adoration for her mother, and just grateful for her being who she was to shape who she is.
I agree. That's beautiful.
And what about you? I know you had a highlighter.
Listen,
going crazy.
My book is marked up, girl.
What we got?
More stripes than Jesus. Okay, so my favorite chapter was God and Other Reformed Helicopter Parents. But my favorite passage from this one, okay, Candice, you ate me up this whole chapter, but I needed it. So free will gives us the chance to discover our authentic selves. When we're born, we don't know who we'll actually become. We're shaped and guided by parents, guardians, and those in leadership to become who they think we should be. If we're lucky, we don't get folks who try to dictate the entire process, but who guide us as we grow and evolve. Free will, this God-given ability to make choices, allows us to find out who we truly are. Maybe we are inherent risk takers, but grew up being told to play it safe. Or maybe we're introverts who were pushed to be outgoing in ways we don't want to be. Choosing the truth for ourselves allows us to be self-determinant. It doesn't mean we don't make mistakes or won't look back on some decisions and cringe. What it does mean, even with the fumbles, we're journeying towards a whole and full life.
I love that. Can you explain why you chose that one as one of your favorites?
So I truly believe that this chapter and that quote, it went over a lot of questions and a lot of conflictions I've had throughout my life, just feeling like I was raised in communities that, were different than me, not necessarily wrong. Candice, you brought me to that during this book. We have a lot of apologies to give, bear with me. But just understanding that sometimes the things that you need from certain people, they don't have it, and you just happen to come through the birthing canal of your mother. I like how you gave your flowers to your mother, but you come through the birthing canal of your mother, and your parents do the best they can with what they know and what they have to give, and sometimes that feels like it wasn't destined for you, and it feels wrong sometimes. But in other times, you can look back in hindsight 2020 and realize that you were still getting the absolute best, and even if that best felt like a deterrent, or I'm gonna say a cage, or the caged bird, sometimes it was necessary. And you can look and learn and decipher from which parts that you want to keep and take along with your journey. So that entire chapter really read me, but that part really just hit me like so
Okay.
yeah. I really like that one.
Yeah, like we said, girl, there were so many great things to highlight and to just take away from this book, and I love that you picked that one.
Yes.
Because free will was actually talked about just so much throughout the book, and it's a lot to unpack.
It is. And I really love the fact that she dove into these subjects fearlessly and said all the things that a lot of us are thinking, like, why do we have free will and then there's so many rules? Who made the rules? Are these rules actually written in this way? So it really makes you ask the questions of, okay, am I able to go out and find out who I am, or do I have to stay within the guidelines that were given to me? So I really appreciate her just giving that information, like, you can, it's we have our own individual journey. So yeah, Candice, thank you so much for that. And girl, let's get into this beautiful body of work, okay? So we can move into the discussion of the book. I think with this book, we're going to do it just a little bit different than we've done our other reviews, because we usually popcorn questions. But there is so much information to go through in her book that we decided to go chapter by chapter and kind of give like the meat and potatoes of what we pulled from it, the healing parts that we pulled from it, and really just, get into some things, okay?
Okay.
All right. So basically we're going to start from chapter 1. So let's get, if you have your books, turn to We Are Good Creations. Come on, Candice. All right.
One thing I absolutely love about each chapter, that as we go through them, she gives like a little short story to go along with them to help us better understand, the concept she's trying to give us. And I really appreciate that. Like when we dive into the first chapter, We Are Good Creation, I think she's kind of started off with her childhood and just talking about what it was like growing up in the church, being the daughter of a single mom, and how everyone in the church made her mother believe that she was the problem. I was so irritated with that, because unfortunately it's a reality. Just so much responsibility being placed on the mother, and the lack of responsibility and accountability on the fathers is very clear to me in this chapter.
Yes.
Even as far as leadership and the heads of the church, and just people that we look up to and know and love and trust. And to see that her mom experienced these things with some of the religious leaders in the church, it makes sense why Red Lip Theology was born. If women...
And with family, too.
Oh, yes, especially
Girl.
with family. But I think that when we, even when we have these situations going on with our family, I think we look to our church for healing, for understanding, and for just...
A place of refuge. Like,
Yes.
that's where God's people are supposed to be.
Yeah, so let me go with my other people. And to be shamed by them as well, it was just so frustrating to see, because it's like we said, it's a reality.
So one of the big parts that really touched my heart, like you said, in this part of the book, when she really went into, they wanted her mother to stand before the church and like tell them that she felt bad, for having a child out of wedlock. And my first thought when I read those, like that part of the chapter is what a daddy, what. Why we can't have both everybody on one accord, and we both, repent and say how we feel bad, or we are apologizing to our congregation for being embarrassment or stepping outside of the word. And it really made me think about the fact that also in these situations, the women are held more accountable for men for these decisions. She says this so many times during the book when she talks about her experience, that her father got to just go and live his life. Nobody was holding him accountable for like abandoning one of his children, but also raising his other two sons. And then also him being respected in his church, him being,
Loved and adored in the church.
It really took me back. And I really think that it's something to really pay attention to, that the main people who are making the sacrifices in these type of situations, mothers, are the ones, and we talked a little bit about this in our first introductory episode. Don't forget to go watch that. Mothers are talked about when they're in these situations and they're taking on the burden of these situations. They're talked about so negatively and held to the stripes of their mistakes, but men are not given the same type of,
even though we were equal partners, even though we were equal partners in this situation. And
like in the word, in the holy word, not Candice word, but we're not supposed to abort our children. Abortion is against Christianity, but it's like, you don't want me to abort my baby, but if I keep my baby, I have to feel shame for the fact that I'm keeping my child. One of the notes that I wrote to the side, and we can really get into it because I wrote down some pages of quotes that went along with it. But in the church, you're rooting for the mother to fail, but you want the child to succeed. It's kind of like a walking contradiction, and I know Candice talked about this as well. How can you want the best for the child, but you are literally belittling and causing emotional, mental trauma to the mother who has to raise the child? And then to be in a community where you're helping raise the child and giving the child even more shame for being here. So it's like, choose.
Pick a side.
Listen, do you want me to keep my baby or not?
And then seeing how some of the family members and other church members made it a point to make it known, or made it a point to make Candice feel that she was a mistake. That was just crazy to me, because that is a child. That is a child. And this baby is being made to feel bad about something that she had absolutely nothing to do with. And I love how her mom worked overtime to shield her from that. You know, her mom seemed to be just a beautiful, self-aware person, and just a ride or die. Like, I adore her mom in this book. I really did.
Listen, because your mom showed the most beautiful duality in loving God, loving my community, not saying what I should, what I would say, not saying what we would say about the people who are causing you harm, always speaking highly of your father, but also loving your child immensely and endlessly, fiercely, and instilling in you to show respect even to the people who
don't deserve the
don't
respect.
deserve it. Like, your mother was a walking reflection of Jesus. When you say your mom was God, you're not, as I kept reading,
You're not
like,
wrong.
Listen.
And I love how she let her make her own decisions.
Mm-hmm.
She let her have agency over herself.
Yes,
because you know,
yes.
sometimes we see so many different situations where the different parent dynamics, and the parent will place certain ideas and beliefs in the child's head, and not once did her mom do that. And that takes a big person to do that, to not put your own feelings onto your child. And I adore her mom the entire book.
Yes, I like how she said that, you know, even in times where she wanted her mom to show that frustration, like, girl, you ain't mad, I'm mad. Why you ain't mad? And I really like the fact that your mom showed you a certain type of respect and reverence for yourself and her, to always rise above. Like, I know we say we go low, we go, I ain't gonna say the other one, but she really gave Michelle Obama, like, they go low, we go high. Don't worry about it. But she kept it OG with you and let you know who said what, so you wasn't in the dark. So I appreciate her for that. But, you know, it really was a beautiful thing to see. Like, absolutely gorgeous.
I think most of the novels that we read, there's always a conflict between the daughter or the main character and her mom. There's always, you know, a difficult relationship. So to just see the beauty of this relationship, I adored it.
Yes,
I really did.
One of the things she said, like, single motherhood is a stain, the scarlet letter in our community. I agree so much. In her church and many churches at the time, unmarried pregnant women were expected to come before the church, confess their sins, and ask for the church to forgive them. Very rarely, if ever, were the expecting fathers made to do the same. Like, crazy. Cause why? Because why? Why would I come before you, who is too flesh and blood, and confess my sins to you, who doing the same type of sins?
Who are you?
Listen. So, along in this chapter as well, she does continue to discuss as she moves into going to college and choosing to go to school to teach the word as well. And I'm proud of you for that, because that was so interesting. You don't hear many women who say they're going to go to seminary school. And I was like, okay. But also, it was so interesting as well that you saw that in those spaces as well, it was challenging for women to give their opinion about who God is, and how you see yourself in the church and in the word, and also just like how we are represented in the word. I thought that was very interesting as well. I really enjoyed that part as well.
Okay. That makes me think about, so in the first part, we talked about just with the religious leaders and lack of accountability for the fathers in some situations. And when she went to school, she talked about how there was a classmate that actually questioned her, and he actually helped birth Red Lip Theology. I think when she was describing him, she was, from my perspective, it was just from, he approached her from a condescending place, as if she didn't know what was going on, and just tried to make her feel like her beliefs or her thoughts weren't correct. So that was like the second encounter with a male that we saw that was, you know, working overtime to belittle this woman.
Devalue.
Yes, just goes to show that in this world, just the way men are made to feel superior in this world.
And comfortable.
Very comfortable.
Like the audacity. I told you. Now, I said 90s and above, but it must be all of y'all got a subscription. The audacity must be given out at birth. They must got a manual, because how dare you? But Candice get into that too, while y'all think like that. But we gonna get into it. So here's a quote from this chapter as well that really call my eye. Let me make sure I'm in my right place. I hadn't yet, hold on. Most of the scholars talking in this lane were white, and I hadn't yet been introduced to black scholars and practitioners like Derek Hicks at Wake Forest University and Pastor Herbert Brown in Baltimore, who were doing the work while caring for the land and sentient beings is important. These white scholars weren't making room in their scholarship to discuss treatment of black people. And if they weren't talking about black folk, I knew they weren't checking for black women. And in the next sentence, she does say, I highlighted dehumanized black body experiences. I really thought that it was so very important how she was diving into the fact that even in these Christian spaces, black people and women specifically, like, we're being excluded. Like, our word and our experience and our knowledge is not even being held to the same esteem of those who we doing the same type of research. Like, we're doing the same type of educational growth in our field, but these spaces are not created. You know, we talk about it all the time, how certain spaces are not available for black people and very widely saturated. And I just think that it was so eye-opening to see that in even her learning about the word, that you would think seminary, this is a place for you learn about God, and you learn about the human experience, you learn about what we're supposed to believe in and faith and loving, and it seems as if those are the most toxic places.
And that just goes to show that racism and sexism like exist in all corners of the world.
Yeah,
they exist everywhere, and there's no avoiding it.
Yes,
and like she did, confronting it head first and redefining it and making it your own thing. And I love that. Like, it's so crazy that Red Lip Theology was birthed from, like,
you had me fucked up. Basically, because clearly
birth in adversity.
Listen. All right, so was there any more you wanted to say about this chapter? Any more quotes that stuck out to you in this particular chapter? Okay. All right, so we're going to get into a little bit out of the chapter from Suing God for Back Child Support. There are so many great things that she talked about, and very heart-touching things that she talked about as regards to her father, her experience with, you know, figuring out who her father was, meeting her father, and essentially given the choice, which also hand clap for your mom, given the choice to choose, like, do you want a relationship with your father or not? And we thought that that was very powerful. So yeah, any big takeaways? I know you said it was something that you remember. Some big takeaways from this chapter.
It's small. Okay, so she starts off this chapter by saying, for years I believed Luther Vandross was my daddy, and my mama had no intentions of telling me otherwise. And that reminds me of another book that we read, and just some of our, you know, just black women's relationship to black artists, like black male artists. We read another book, The Secret Lives of Church Ladies, where she talked about her mom loved Gerald Levert. And I feel like all of our moms have that one person that they just love.
Listen,
and
it's my song, put it on.
And it's just something about, you know, for these women, just highlighting that one particular black man when all the rest of them, you know, really ain't. So
we ain't gonna shade.
We're not gonna shade there, but
just for this episode. But after that, we good. Cause Candice got us. Cause what I'm about to say ain't gonna be nice. So let's go ahead.
I like how she, you know, she started this chapter off with on a high point.
We're gonna talk about the best ones first.
She deeply took us to another level when she talked about just her experience with her dad and just the way that he did not want to show up in her life as a father, and just the impact that had on her life.
So first and foremost, I want to touch on a part that she really, in great detail, explained how her mother built a beautiful life for her, where she really didn't even think about the fact at first, you know, I don't have a father, until she realized, like, you know, I want these things. I want this experience with the father. I want these memories. I want to be able to say, you know, when my daddy come to get me. And I like the fact as well when she got the opportunity to meet her father. First and foremost, her family, y'all low down, because the family be the main one when you keep the kids, and they be like, oh yeah, they go Diamond Daddy right there. He ain't in her life though. She don't know that. The kids can hear you.
So terrible.
The kids can hear you.
And already have a mind of their own.
Listen. But as she gets to the point in the book where she, just a quick cliff notes, she meets her dad at a grocery store. She already knew that was her father. She saw herself in him, and she was asked by her mother if she wanted to have a relationship with him. And this was a quote that really got me, like, girl, you got me with this one. He wanted to be in and out of my life by way of her bed, and she couldn't afford the pain his inconsistency would cause me or her. Instead, she drew a line in the sand. Because he didn't actually want to be a father, he couldn't have access to me. Girl, that is such a big thing that happens in, the single mother, single parent, I ain't gonna just put it on mothers and fathers, environment where, as the parent who's the primary care holder of the child, you realize, like, this person doesn't want to be a father. This person, doesn't want to step up to their responsibilities. Or if they do, they want to have limitations to when and where and how. And I thought that it was very beautiful that her mother never spoke ill of him and never let her know of those circumstances, but in the same way protected her child to, like, look, if you want to be a father, you can be a father. If you don't, then you're not. And I completely respect that. And when the time came where her mother, still didn't want to give that choice, she did. I really believe that this part of the story shines the light on the fact that, as we stated before, men benefit from not being held accountable. Because as through the chapter, she continues to discuss how her father had so many opportunities to show up, so many opportunities and so many pathways to forgiveness, to mend the relationship, even with her siblings, and he never chose to. And I think a big thing that women, especially black women, we have to acknowledge when the choice is there and it's not being made. And we have to acknowledge the choices that are being made, because the actions are the most important thing. And I really like how she highlighted it in the book.
And we talked about her mom, and we speak so highly of her mom, and just how she maintained just a personal integrity to never speak bad on this man that helped bring her child into this world. And it was to the point where her daughter, Candice, kind of felt a way about her never having anything negative to say about him. Like, why don't you hate this man? And
because that would have been me. I got a few things to say. Ooh, when you snapped at him at your school, I was like, yes, Candice. Ooh, but you got grounded, so stay in a child's place.
Please stay in a child's place.
But no, she had so many valid questions. And, as a parent, I think that as a single parent, but, I'm mapping my co-parenting, and your mama gave me some tips. So I'm in the field with her. But I really feel like the questions that the adults have, her putting this in writing really helped me understand this. Let me be clear. The questions that the adult has, the mother has, like, why won't you do this? Why don't you feel compelled to do such? Why don't you miss your child or whatever? She had these exact same questions, and I felt so seen. I was raised in a 2-parent household. My father was there, never missed a beat, but it was like, dang, I don't want my child to feel that. You know what I'm saying? It's a different type of hurt when you can see it and you don't. You can feel it and you just don't want that rain to hit your child. Like, I really love how I love how she wrote that and allowed her experience to come alive on the page.
I think she was a voice, and she said a lot of things that a lot of us had to say. I didn't grow up with my dad, and
it's a valid experience. It's a valid experience.
Yeah, and just I never thought about it the way she put it. Just the same way the church shunned the mothers for being single mothers, also shunned children for being daddyless daughters. Like the child has, like it's, the child's responsibility to do that. And it's just so much accountability not being held in the community for some of the members, and all of the accountability being put on the other party in our community. And it's just
sad.
It's wild to see.
But it has to be said. So, people can know, like, you think that it's just a simple conversation, a simple piece of gossip, but words have power, and those things shape people's reality and experience. And some people never forget it. As we can see, you never forget it, and it makes you harbor resentment and shame and hurt. And we don't want to do that. We want to change the trajectory of our experiences, even if we have parties in our community that are not stepping up to their responsibilities. Hold them accountable, but also give love and light to those who are doing the best they can in their situation. She definitely, as we've said many times before, it's another part of this chapter where she highlights her mom. She says, but mama said he didn't. Her commitment to me would always elevate her word over his. Even as a child, I knew any person who doesn't take care of their responsibilities isn't someone to be trusted.
That's real.
Man, ate the girls up.
That's real.
Ate the girls up.
Because how can you do this for me when you aren't? I don't want you to do anything for me that you're not doing for yourself. Just that accountability was not there, and it was just, ultimately it shaped her into the woman that she is today. And all of our experiences shape us, but and we would always say that if this person, if they were in our life, things would be better. We really don't know that. We really don't know, because had he been in her life,
and she touched on that, like, she doesn't know what she was being protected from if he was in her life, what demons or what negative characteristics or just his experience as a human. She doesn't know. Maybe he didn't feel inadequate to be a girl dad. Maybe he felt inadequate to be a girl dad or something like that. So she really didn't know and couldn't fill in the gaps. But that doesn't, make her feel any better. But it's like, kind of taking solace in, maybe I was being protected. So I'm not going to harp on the fact of what I lacked. I'm going to focus on what I gained.
That's such a higher mindset.
Listen.
Because that's not...
Beef. From the jump.
It's not easy. It's not easy.
She also touched on a big major point that I think women have been screaming this from the top of the hills. Where is the man at? Where is the man at? Where is the man that's saying, hey, brother, that ain't it.
There's a little...
Handle your business. Yeah. There is no... And I think that... And she says this so many times as well, and we know this in real life. Men don't really respect women's opinion, and a lot of times they don't respect women's experience, and they believe that women don't know what it's like being a man. And I concur, I agree as well, but I believe that the men who are doing the best in their circumstances, who are like showing up for their responsibilities, who are going against the grain, why aren't y'all challenging the parts that aren't working? Why aren't y'all challenging y'all counterparts that are making y'all look bad? You feel me? Because we are so hard on women. Like, we're so hard on women who don't fit a certain standard. Of course, no standard is correct. We all having a human experience, but I believe that there aren't enough men holding other men accountable and keeping women safe, keeping children safe, and changing the trajectory of this world.
I agree with you because even when I feel like for them to even give you that accountability, you have to be honest about your situation. And I don't think a lot of men are honest about it. I don't think a lot of men are honest about it because... in my mind, we say that her dad was not active in her life. How can a man just sit in conversation the way we're sitting right now and say, I don't take care of my children?
And they just go continue the conversation like you ain't dropped that bomb. Because I know women would have been like, what?
I'm saying, like, you don't tell the part, you don't share that part in your community because it makes you look bad. Whereas, like,
And I don't even think that I think in a lot of ways, it doesn't even have to be shared. It's a known thing. Like, I ask this question a lot. That's all I'm gonna say. I ask this question a lot. Like, how can said people be in community with a person that they know has a child, children? They don't see the children. They don't see the child. They don't see the clothes. They don't see you. You don't see nothing. So how is this man a positive part of your community and you're not pouring into him in a positive way, or you're not asking about his community that he's created? Cause me and you friends. You got a baby. I don't never see your baby. Girl, where your baby?
so either he is a liar or he is in community with men that don't value accountability.
The daddy is the baby. Ain't nobody got the baby. But that, I think I asked those questions too, and that's why I feel like so many parts of this book, I was chuckling with Candice, like, girl, I want to know too. Where is the niggas at? But now, another big thing that she talks about is male masculinity. As we're talking about now, the bar for black masculinity is so low. We celebrate black men simply because they're not robbing, raping, and wreaking economic and physical havoc.
The bar is in hell.
Yeah.
Because that's not enough. That's not enough. That's the standard.
And she said also the good guy routine, but you know that he's a bad man in private.
And we see a lot of that.
Flexing for the gram. In the flesh. But in this chapter, she definitely goes into how she had to find healing and letting go and accepting that her father is her father. You know what I'm saying? Ain't no type of heartbrokenness, her trying to look for the answers. It wasn't going to change the fact that the facts were the facts and he was who he was and he is who he is, and it's not her responsibility to try to figure it out. And he's going to be held accountable by God. I think that's the best answer that we can give in those type of situations.
I believe in this chapter she talked about when she was getting ready to go purchase her first car and just not having her dad there to help her go get the car, and just having to sit with your reality not being what you thought it would look like. Because in a perfect world, of course dad would come help with car shopping and help do all these things, and to not have that is just really a harsh reality.
Yeah. Hey girl, thank you so much for watching this episode of Our Sisters Corner. Don't forget to join our book club if you enjoy what we're reading this month, and never to miss the next month. Also, you can follow our social media pages to see how we're talking about the book, breaking down the different subjects, and what we enjoy most about the book that we're reading this month.
You can follow us on YouTube as well as all podcast streaming platforms. So be sure to tell a friend to tell a friend.
Yes. So it's definitely a big gaping hole in our community. I know that there are so many circumstances that make the father not be a part of the picture, but in this particular circumstance, I believe that it's something that we need to work on, like holding black men accountable for being there for your children. Don't have none. If you don't want to raise them, don't have none. If you don't want to be a part of their experience, don't have any. So, just be real. And if you don't think like that, why have children that you just want to be out here unkept, just out here hurt? Think about your own personal experience. That's what I'll be thinking. How do you feel? How did you feel as a child? Never lose sight. But was there anything else you wanted to say about this subject, or anything that grasped you in this chapter before we move on to higher ground?
I just thought about something. Candice and I share a similar feeling, in regard to our mothers, just, loving them, having adoration for them. And I'm wondering, your mom being on such a high pedestal, I'm wondering, like, would that have been the same if Dad wasn't there? If Dad was there, like, what that looks like? Because, of course, this is God to you when you see that this is the one who is making sure I'm taken care of, I'm fed, clothes, housed, all these things,
I think that too comes down to who he is as a person, because two parents can be there, but if it's obvious that a parent is there that has no interest of really being there and just doing the bare minimum and pouring into you in a negative way, whether emotionally traumatic or what physically traumatic, you know when somebody is, I'm surviving in this position, I'm not really thriving.
I'm not thriving
yeah
here.
So
I got you.
I think that it just would look different depending on who he is as a person. It would look different as far as what type of experiences he would have brought to the circumstance. I think she, in the book a lot, she internalized the fact that she felt unwanted because he wasn't there. So I think it would have changed that. Like, okay, both of my parents decided to stay, work it out, raise me, but what other things would have? Because, I think, and she says this too in the free will, in the next chapter, God and Other Reformed Helicopter Parents, free will and our different experiences change our perspective. So, of course, I think her perspective would be different, to answer your question, but we just don't know if it would have been better,
I get that.
Yeah. So,
now we on to your favorite chapter of the book, God and Other Reformed Helicopter Parents.
So I really have a specific question. In this chapter, she goes deeply into the learned rhetoric or the learned knowledge that we get from the church and how we develop the things we can do, the things we can't do, how free will goes into that, if everything that we do in life and accomplish is already predestined, or do we genuinely have free will and God just steps in as a friend, as a confidant in those different seasons and gives us the tools that we need to move forward. So my question was, what's your perspective on free will, and are we allowed or limited by religious standards when it comes to free will? I know it's a big question, but I think it's gonna.
I don't know.
I thought I was gonna cry, Candice, but we may skip that part this episode. But this really touched my heart, because I just believe that in so many ways, when we make mistakes, we think that we're the blame, and she touched on this too. Like, we have such a hard, well, I'm gonna say I have such a hard time to forgive myself when I make certain decisions, because it's like, you knew better, you could have done better, you fell short, and just not thinking that God is very forgiving. Like, we know that God gives us the forgiveness, but like, I'm being punished for those decisions through my experience. But I think Candice shows a beautiful way that whatever the circumstances are with our free will, God shows up as a friend, a helpful helpmate, a confidant, a parent, and to hold our hand and to walk us through each season, regardless of if our decision goes against his word and our free will takes us on a detouring, route. God is still there and he's still present, so his will is still being done. And I just,
I think that can be really hard to grasp when we as people, like you said, we feel unworthy and we feel, just undeserving of God's grace. So to know that, he still got me through everything
I'm
is
still in the palm of his hands. Come on now. Okay.
So, in this chapter, she was talking about just in the Garden of Eden, and she said, if there's a chance, Eve would probably tell us, if she had the opportunity, she would do it again. And she was saying that's the power of free will. Because it's a choice.
Yeah,
It's a choice.
And you just never know how, if you were to go back and make what you think was the right choice, how that would completely change
That's
the trajectory.
what we just said in the previous chapter. Like if he were present. Like we don't know that.
You just never know. It's like all of these things. And I think that that's kind of the duality and beautifulness of religion and Christianity anyway. But we can only do our best in the moment. Looking back, hindsight, we always say hindsight 2020. But is it? It's 2020 from where we're sitting now. But if we were sitting there again and we did something different, we'll be saying, like, dang, I should have made the other choice. But, it's like,
maybe
that's the story. It all comes together because that's what was supposed to happen anyway.
Yeah.
God, you do your job, we're gonna do ours, okay? But yeah, really, she dives into this chapter talking about free will and talk about the beliefs and so many things in the church that are put upon children who are in church. I thought that it was so interesting that she says we thought that we were better because we were church kids, and that's such a big thing, that when you're inside the church and you're living by the word, you're deemed to be one of the good kids. And it was a powerful point where she says, we thought we were the good kids, but we all ended up in the same place, confused and figuring it out. And maybe that's the big thing, when you have guardians, parents who teach you what they think you're supposed to be learning from them, from their experience, it stops you from having your own experience. So now you did all that trying to follow their instructions, which of course is important, but in a way that should guide and not lead. It's supposed to guide me, but I'm still supposed to make my own decisions. Because at one point I'm going to have to figure out who I am anyway. But a big thing about free will too. Did you have any thoughts on that part?
No, I agree with you.
Oh, okay,
free will is allowing us to make decisions to be who we truly are.
Now she gagged me when she was talking about when people say that they hear God's voice. Like, girl, why God had to tell you? He got my number.
Direct line.
Listen, he gave me the phone. He paid the bill. Now why he calling you about my business? And how God sound like you? He agreeing with what you saying. How y'all on the same page?
Such a coinky dink, huh?
Ain't that a coinky dink? But this was just so powerful. But another big part that she brings us all together when it comes to free will. God doesn't expect perfection from us, and yet we place that expectation on ourselves. We don't think it's possible God can love us as we are, for who we are, and consequently we place these unrealistic expectations on ourselves and other people. Just to sum it up quickly, and you ate me up, Candice, because I want to give an apology. I put that up because I don't do this often. But no, I just want to give an apology for, I think that she ate me up because a lot of times I don't take into account that we can put such big expectations on people, baby daddies, parents, friends, that they be like you, but they're not you.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, you have this big expectation for these other people, but what about you? You are also making mistakes. You also fall short. You also don't live up to the glory of you thinking that you're right and a perfectionist. Come on now. Yeah, so just, giving God the opportunity, because He's gonna have it anyway. He's in control. But accepting God's grace and forgiveness and love, and understanding that people aren't God. People put all these definitions on what they believe God is supposed to be, and it's so important that we have an understanding of God for ourselves, so we know what feels and get confirmation from God what is right. And she also talked about, like, just to close this out, I don't want a God that He knows every single thing I'm gonna do all the time, and before I do it is I have to believe that I'm leading with this free will, and God is holding my hand.
Okay.
And whatever decision I make, he got me. He got me.
Spiritual liberation.
Listen.
You know, just embracing spirituality in a way that affirms our identity and empowers us to make the right decisions for our lives.
Yes, that's really big. Like, and I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the chapter that was regarding the special friend, what she said about the funeral. Now, that's a little weird, Candice. You say you love funerals and obituaries. You love reading about obituaries. I thought that was so funny. But I think that too, like in the spiritual realm, because if you are a part of the LGBTQIA plus, don't butcher me, I'm sorry. If you're part of that community, there aren't many spaces, if it's space at all, for you to show up as your most authentic self in Christianity or in religious spaces, and it's very much shamed and shunned. So I think that this book did a very great job at being inclusive across the entire spectrum. She definitely in her bag when it comes to all the things she's learned and the plethora of subjects that fall under the religious umbrella. Yeah, so even with that chapter, she talks about how she was very heavily critical of those who fell under the LGBTQ plus community, and then having to learn that in God we all have a place. You know, even if we don't agree with your lifestyle, even if we don't agree with or understand or even know how to accept it and unlearn certain things that we have learned, because I feel like there are a lot of outdated mindsets when it comes to that, and yeah, so much judgment and so much shame, and shunning people and not giving them a place to love themselves and love who they are, you know, and even in God, because God loves you too. And she had so many great points in that chapter, and I thought that was so beautiful. Now another one was Amazing Graceful Side Chicks. Girl, I owe you an apology, Candice, okay? In the last episode, I did kind of make a little jokey joke about being a side chick to a married man, and Candice even touched on that, like when we try to weigh our sins against one another, saying, oh, I did this, but oh, you did this, like, oh, I was a side chick, but you was a side chick to a married man. There is no difference. We're still making a mistake, and we have to learn from that mistake, and in God we have room to find peace and learn and show each other grace and understand that no sin is bigger than the other one.
That's true.
No sin. Like,
those two chapters you just spoke about really made me think about all the ways that each of us have our own God complexes. When people's values and actions don't align with ours, we think we're better than them, and we think our way is right. You know, when people live certain lifestyles, or even, you know, in the decisions with who they spend their lives with, we become so judgmental, and those are the same criticisms and, you know, the same sayings and thoughts that we try to stray away from ourselves.
And it really shows how, as I stated earlier, in the same places where we want grace, we have to acknowledge all the places that we don't give it, and all the same places that we want forgiveness and acceptance, and we believe that we should not be judged for the mistakes or decisions that we've made, but understanding that other people deserve that same type of grace and understanding as well.
That's true.
She definitely wrote that in such a very strategic way, where you were able to acknowledge something as a thing, but also see yourself in there like, I'm making that mistake too.
Yes, we love a self-aware queen.
Listen.
And I feel like, you know, in the chapters, she acknowledged her, you know, flaws and wrongdoings, and she was able to come to terms with herself and free herself, so, you know, the outside world couldn't take those things that, you know, we learned about her and use them against her.
It's such a very, 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 very powerful and articulate way, where it's like, hold up, are you judging me? You think you're better than me? But also at the end of Surviving a Special Friend, this was a beautiful quote that I thought was very powerful. These beliefs are why homophobia, queerphobia, and trans antagonism are among my deal breakers in relationships. I can't be with a man who believes there is a gay agenda or that homosexuality is the emasculation of black men. Daryl and the people I love in my life deserve better, and so does the world. And she goes on to say on down the passage, I want a world where the ones coming behind us don't have to fear living in their truth. And I think that in this particular chapter, she put it towards those in the LGBTQ community, just bringing all of this together. But I think that we should look at that in all things, all spaces, all truths, whatever your truth may be. God made us in an individual way, and God gave us the path that we're on. God gave us the challenges that we're on, and he made it very clear that he didn't ask us to judge nobody.
That's so true.
We
So
missed that part in the word. I didn't ask you to be the judge. I asked you to love one another, no matter your shortcomings, no matter your issues and differences. I asked you to love one another, and I think that she made it very, very clear in the word, like Candice's word, not the Lord's word. She made it very, very clear that I think that we missed that part. That's the biggest part, and we miss it. It's like the elephant in the room, and we want to all walk around it. And I think that was great. Yeah.
I love her friend. What I believe his name is Darren. Is it Darren or Daryl? Darren.
Daryl.
Daryl. Daryl got her right on together. He was like
Cleared her.
the same way you get those men you talking to grace and understanding. Give that to me. Give that to me. I need some of that too if we are to remain in community. And I love that because one thing about it, some people are definitely going to stand up for themselves, 10 toes down, and will not tolerate ignorance in their way. And, are willing to openly call you out on your ignorance so you can self-correct and get better. Because if you want to be in partnership with me, I don't play that over here, so you have to get right.
Yeah. Speaking of sexuality, I think that this was not a chapter we should not skip when she talked about the black lace teddies and other pieces I rock under the anointing, where she said Christians are obsessed with sex and sexuality. Yes, that was a very powerful chapter where she goes into a lot of points that it is. The community hyperfixate on what's considered more powerful and more valuable when it comes to sex and sexuality, but not really knowing much at all. Not about your body, not about different experiences, not about, expression through sexuality and stuff like that. I think that, of course, we do believe, the core beliefs of abstaining to marriage, but if you don't, that mistake does not take, I'm not even going to say mistake. That choice, I take that back.
I love that. That choice.
Listen, that choice to do with your body as you desire and as you feel led to do, it does not take the value away from who you are. I think this entire book has put it in such a beautiful way that if we believe that God is a loving, caring, understanding, forgiving God, then any decision that we make, we come to God with an open heart for forgiveness, that he will understand that you made that choice. You realize now that that may not have been the choice that you were supposed to make, or that was within my will, or was the time to make that choice. But that does not lessen the value of you as still being my child and still being able to be used or able to be seen as valuable, or be less valuable than someone who hasn't made that choice or you don't know of. Like her mom clocked it about the girls who did the offering. Like them girls getting up there saying they're a virgin. Who knows?
Mama be knowing though.
Listen, who knows? So it's just, this entire body of work has definitely weaved together learning to love yourself as God said in his word that he loved us, and stop focusing so much on what other people are doing, or what you deem other people shouldn't be doing, or what you're doing that make you better than other people. Like, you're losing the point. God looking at us like, girl, that's not even important.
One thing that stuck out to me in this chapter is just the importance of reclaiming our sexuality and making it our own thing. Because, like we were saying, just throughout the book, there have been so many men and so many opinions from men about the bodies of women, you know, just in everyday life as well as in the church. And that's why it's important for us to reclaim our bodies, for one, and just reclaim our sexuality and, like you said, expression of that to perfectly tailor to ourselves.
Yes, very, very good information.
And embracing it without shame as well. You know, just not being ashamed. Like, you know, like the girls in the book that did the offerings, they were not virgins and they were still presenting as such because there was shame, you know, there's shame held around women's bodies. So it's important for us to just reclaim our bodies and our sexuality.
And really reclaiming our power in all the spaces where we feel like discriminated against or left out. She definitely goes into that, a big one, before she closes out the book, when she talks about her leaving the church, and she talks about her really getting a new understanding of God and walking this path to even create this book and giving honor to her mother for her to be able to present this information to the world. Just understanding that all of these things tie together, but at the end of the day, understand that all these things work together, and the main people who are judging you for where you fall short when you need them to hold you up during your lowest times, they can't even do that. They can't even do that because during her grief of her mother, like people judging her for how long she was grieving and how she took that situation and how she applied that grief in her life and where she didn't show up for herself. And it was just so powerful to see that the main people that we worry about judging us and the main people we worry about, you know, casting their beliefs upon us are the main people who aren't living the word. The good parts of the word, I would say. The most important parts of the word is caring for each other, leaning on each other. In your times of depression, people coming to show you compassion and community. And during your times of falling off the wagon, or your times of where your opinion does not align with theirs, or your beliefs kind of trigger them, nobody's leading with love anymore. And I think that was so important that she showed that, like, look, all of this that's happening, everybody got these opinions. Y'all not even being my community. Oh, and to curse her mama in her mama house. The two
The pastors that saw that.
Girl.
Yeah, you can keep playing, but just find somebody else to play with.
Where is the Jesus walk that we supposed to be walking? Ain't nobody walking that walk.
I'm so glad you mentioned community because she talked about her spiritual care squad and just having those friends that pour into you, and those people and spiritual leaders, mentors, or anyone that that cares about your spiritual well-being.
Yes.
And everyone isn't a part of that. Everyone can't be a part of that. Like, you actually don't want everyone praying for you, you know?
You don't, because people praying for your downfall, for sure.
Which is so unfortunate, but that is the reality that we live in. And I just really liked how this book highlighted the importance of community and, like she said, her spiritual care squad and her friends that help nurse her back to life or a new form of life.
Yeah, because she talks about the importance in closing out the book of self-care. And just understanding that self-care is more than the physical. Of course, the book is about red lips, makeup, and that's referenced heavily. But understand, like you said, your spiritual team and your inside, and just understanding yourself is a form of self-care. Understanding who you are. This is my saying for the year, part of it. One of my big sayings for this year, just knowing where you end and the world begins.
You have said that a lot.
Yeah, because I think that I really believe truly that a lot of people, including myself, I'm figuring it out and maybe that's like setting boundaries. But we don't have a sense of knowing where we end and where the world begins. The lines are very blurred when our belief system, we talked about this before, just understanding where your belief system comes from and what that means about you, who you are in the folds of that belief system, who you are and what you can stand on, and not having those lines being blurred, having a true sense of self, true sense of understanding. When you truly understand and love yourself, you don't have room to hate on, judge, and condemn other people. And I think that's why a lot of people wrap themselves up in the clothing of Christianity, because they don't have an understanding of themselves. And if you don't, then you really don't understand God. And you don't really understand how you're not self-aware. That's a big one.
Yes.
So how can you love and care for other people and you don't even know and care and love for yourself? So, yeah.
No, that's real.
So, yeah, Miss Candice, you really did your big one. Were there any other major big parts that you wanted to like bring home before we close out? Such a beautiful book. We didn't cry this episode. I'm so proud of us.
Surprisingly.
Listen, because
She gonna cry in the car.
I really thought that I was gonna be booing when I read that quote, but you know what? I feel good about it. I feel good.
Well, that's good.
Shout out to all the apologies I sent out. Y'all deserve. And Candice,
because my
thank
girl
you.
was on an apology tour.
But I think that this is such a great book.
It really is.
To read for accountability, not only for your community, not only for your spiritual walk, not only for your heart and your opinions, but definitely for yourself. Understanding where you end and the world begins, and your belief system. Like, this top 2 and not 2.
Yeah, it really is.
For 2024, you top 2 and not 2, Candice, okay?
I would definitely recommend it to a lot of people. Well, to everyone, because like you said, it touches on so many things.
It's a powerful read. And even if you don't agree, as Candice has said, like, you get to a point in the book where she says she hate God, girl, I can't read him because
we've all been there.
Listen. And we can get into that in a second as we close out. That's a good point to pin that. But this is a powerful read to, what word do I want to say? Because I want to say question, but I'm not even going to say question. Challenge your belief system. We all need a little challenge. Sometimes we need to dive into, why do I believe this? Let me reinforce my beliefs. Yeah.
Like, if you are looking to learn more about faith, femininity, and identity, I think this is the perfect place to start. Perfect.
Because Candice had me flipping the pages like, what'd you say, Candice?
Yes. And I think all of it comes...
I've been ready to pull up on a church member.
We ain't gonna do that. No, don't use your free will to do that.
Listen, Candice had me like, what they do? They say.
So many people are struggling from church hurt.
Yeah.
And she, was just bold enough to be bold about it. And there are so many conversations that talk about millennials being, leaving the church. And so many points in this book were made as to why, the great exodus is happening with millennials.
Listen, I'm gonna challenge churches to read this book, and I'm gonna tell you why. It's a lot in here that you gonna slam that book closed so hard you might knock your drink over. But
Pastor too.
Listen, but I know there are conversations that need to be had about church hurt. You said something when you said that, because a lot of people are hurt by people in the church because of belief systems, and for judgment, and for shame, and for just creating an environment of disdain and distaste and making people feel less than.
Just because we're not in the same situation.
Listen, wasn't nobody perfect but Jesus. Wasn't nobody perfect but Jesus. So I don't get it. But they say hurt people.
That's true. That's very true. I like how in this book I feel like she bridges together, like she.
The gap between literature and healing.
Yes, and she really embraces complexity because we can recognize our beliefs and our experiences and everything, you know, and the good and bad, and they can coexist.
Yes.
I cannot like this thing about myself and still be worthy of God's love, of my community's love, of my community's support. And I really love that, because sometimes, you know, when we sin or when we fall short, or when we're just flawed, we can feel unworthy or undeserving of all these things. And that's not true. Like, God loves us in spite of all that. And we can actually use that as a daily reminder, because sometimes we tend to forget that.
And not project those things and feelings onto other people.
Yes.
And recognizing that when you feel that about yourself, you are projecting it in some type of way.
That's so true.
That is a big thing. And that goes back to the God complex. Like, you really feeling inadequate, and it's showing up in who you are. Like, let's put it to the test. Pick somebody in your mind right now that's extremely judgmental and extremely harsh and extremely negative, and always lining up your decisions and your actions and your way of life to something or the word. Like Candice said, people use the word as what God said, and I bet you that person is struggling with something. And I know that in this moment you can be like, well, good for them, they should be, you know. But I think even in that area, giving grace. And that's where I know that I too, for myself and for others, in places that because I say all the time, I don't understand, why would they do that? But understanding is not for me to understand, it's for me to ask God to extend them grace as I extend myself grace. And understanding that, you know, you're going through something and you don't know how to navigate it, but I hope God helps you with it.
Grace is something else now, because
Before I have to clear the room.
Don't clear the room.
I'm just playing.
I feel like what you just spoke about, grace and forgiveness, and it's so important. And I love how grace has the ability to show up and do things that I couldn't do on my own, because I don't have no grace to give you. But
listen, and learn to find it. You gotta find. I'm finding it. Just learning to find it, like find the grace to give to people. Like, just hush.
It takes a certain level of self-accountability and self-awareness to even extend grace and forgiveness and understanding to people, because we feel that they're undeserving.
Was there anything else you wanted to leave for Miss Candice or the congregation as we close out Red Lip Theology for the month of April?
My biggest takeaway from this book is complete self-acceptance. Just accepting yourself and being aware of all that is you. And every part, you know, the good, the bad, the ugly, accepting all of that and knowing that accepting all of that and knowing that each thing in your life helps shape you into who you are.
Yeah.
You know, because there are some parts of our story that we want to take out. We wish it happened differently, and it doesn't look like the way that we thought it would. But those parts of our story, you know, it's character development.
Amen.
It makes us better people. It makes us stronger people.
Come on, character development. I agree 1000%. And also with this book, I said I was gonna pinpoint something at the end. ADHD, I forgot.
It'll come back to us.
Yeah, but no, I just add a little joke in there. Anywho, I definitely think that, as we stated, this book needs to be read. These things need to be talked about, and we definitely need to have certain discussions when it comes to judgment and shame in the way that things show up in church community and being church hurt. It was something about church hurt. Was it? I forgot. Anyway. But I agree with you 1000%, and I believe that this book is a direct link to self-awareness and self-healing and understanding your own beliefs when it comes to God. God put in the word that we are made in his image and his spirit is within us, and I believe that in that each and every one of us are special. Each and every one of us have a individual experience, and each and every one of us are supposed to have an individual relationship. If the biggest thing I can take away from this is relationship with God, spirit, universe, whoever you want to believe. I believe in God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, but whoever you want to believe, the biggest takeaway is to have a one-on-one experience yourself with God, and knowing that what you're doing with your life is purposeful and in alignment with what he has for you to do. And I think Miss Candice really puts that into such beautiful writing when she talks about how her mother said that she was here for a bigger reason. And I think this was it, Candice. This was it. If you just changing the lives of two girls from Mississippi, God put you in the number for that.
And we thank you.
And we thank you, because you got some tears out of me, man. But I really appreciate it. And I think this was the perfect book to start off the official launch of our podcast and paving the way for who God called us to be.
I agree.
And the work he called us to do.
We are on this journey, and there are so many works like this that just, give us guidelines to make it easier.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to say make it easier, to make it possible.
Yeah.
Because it's hard.
Yeah. Definitely make it possible and make the journey worth taking. Yeah.
We are reclaiming narratives.
And power too. So yeah, we thank you so much for writing this book, Candice. We have enjoyed it. We thank y'all so much for just tuning into this review. Yeah, so we are going to rate the book before we transition into letting you guys know what our next book is for May.
Okay. What do you think about the book? How would you rate it? On a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate it?
I don't do this all the time, Candice. Nah. But I'm gonna give my girl a 5.
I agree.
You gonna get a 5 out of me today. Yeah. Cause
I agree.
all across the board, I don't think nothing was missed. I think my girl bare her soul in this book, and I couldn't ask for nothing more.
I agree.
Yeah.
I feel the exact same way. Definitely 5-star read. Because
5-star
just
read.
when there's a black woman, of course, we read all literature, but when there's specifically a black woman at the center of it, and it focuses on her healing and her relationship with herself and the world, I'm all ears.
Listen, and we are so seen. And in this book, you've done a great job of asking the questions that we all want to ask, what they say, saying the things we're all thinking. And you deserve. So, yeah, 5-star read for you, girl.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate this.
Yes. Come on the podcast if you have time. Okay. As we move into our new read for May, take it away, Kenyatta.
Okay, I'm excited about this. So, in May, our theme is jubilation, and the genre we wanted to focus on this upcoming month is Afrofuturism. And with that being said, we will be reading War Girls by Tochi Onyebuchi. And I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. But this book, War Girls, it is a series, and it's a sci-fi novel, and it's set in futuristic Nigeria. And the land is ravaged by climate change and political conflict. And in this book, this story follows two sisters separated during the Civil War, and they are later reunited on opposing sides. One is a fierce soldier for a rebel group, and the other is adopted by the Nigerian government. It's about sisterhood, loyalty, identity, and just understanding the impact that war has on personal lives as well as society. So
I'm excited. I'm really Now, hear me out. I'm glad we're stepping outside our comfort zone. You know, as I talked about when we picked out books to read for this month coming up, I was like, well, all of them sound so good. You know, this is a genre that I don't normally lean to, but I'm excited to get into it and try something different.
I'm excited for you. So this book is in a dystopian world. It's like a post-apocalyptic world. And I know, like you said, we normally don't gravitate to that. I was introduced to it a little bit with Octavia Butler, and I love her. So we're really excited to step into these different genres. Like we said, we wanted to be really intentional about stepping outside of our comfort zone in every way possible in 2024. And reading is the perfect way to get into that.
Yep. Good. So we're gonna be reading more, girls. And yeah, if you would like to read the book with us, we will put the book cover and a link to the book to the Amazon. If you like to get the book from Amazon, if you like to find it anywhere else, we'll let you know if it's on Hoopla or some of the free apps that we use. We'll put that in the caption. So yeah, get your book and read with us in May. We can't wait to read with you.
So if this book, War Girl, sounds like something you're into, follow along with us. Feel free to join our book club, and we'll link that down below for you guys. And follow us on YouTube. Get a little visual of what we like to do here. And if you don't have the time to actually pick up the book, feel free to download and follow us on all podcast streaming platforms.
And don't forget, if you didn't want to read the book, come and listen to what we have to say about it and points that we make, because this is our Sisters Corner, where we're bridging the gap between literature and healing.
Yes.
We gotta make a handshake, a hand motion. But okay, so yeah, we thank you guys for listening thus far. Let's move into our butterfly letter segment. Yay! So we do have a letter today.
Okay, I'm excited. Our first.
Yeah. It's the first one. We're gonna leave this in there too.
Okay.
It's the first one.
Our first butterfly letter.
Butterfly letter segment. This is a segment where we give acknowledgement to somebody in our community, within your community, her community, their community, or business or entity that is doing a great job or inspiring you, or just completely transforming in front of your eyes in a way that you think is so beautiful. Send in a letter to let us know how you appreciate somebody, and we can read it on the podcast. We will put the email here. Email below. With the email here and in the caption, so you don't forget it, where you can send your emails to write in and celebrate the person in your life. We can't wait to read it. Yes.
Like we always say, it's always important for us to give our community flowers and remind them of the amazing job that they're doing.
Yes. And this time we do have a letter, but we're going to do 2 butterfly letters. The first one, we're definitely going to go to the email. Yeah, I was looking it up a minute ago. I wasn't ignoring what my girl was saying. Just want to let y'all know, because I don't know how I know y'all judging on here. We just talked about judgment. Change your ways. So today the butterfly letter is from Tressa, and she is dedicating her letter to Miss Rashinda Washington, which happens to be Kenyatta's mom. Yay! Okay, so the letter says, I would like to write this butterfly letter to Miss Rashinda Washington, the absolute sweetest, humble, strong, and loving person I've ever met. She has been through hell and back, and she doesn't allow it to dim her light and shine for others. Her loyalty is unmatched and so pure as gold. She motivates me daily to push and pray. I'm blessed to be in her shadow. That was so beautiful. Thank you, Tressa.
It really was beautiful. It really was beautiful. And I'm glad that it was for my mom, because I think, it's always special to, when you do so many great things, you never pick your head up to just see, like, oh, I've accomplished all these things.
I'm inspiring others. I too am in the number, Tressa, because Miss Rashinda, I love you. I appreciate you. You know what you do. I'm gonna look you in the camera. Listen, you know what you do, and you are greatly appreciated. See, We got to shine our love and light on those in our communities and take this moment to do the same in your community. You never know. Somebody might write a letter about you. Tell them about the podcast. Okay, we're going to move on to the next one because I don't want to ramble. But yeah, we thank you so much, Miss Tressa, for writing in. Yay! Our first butterfly letters. Our second butterfly letter is going to go to Miss Candice Marie Bimbo.
Yes.
We were going to do one butterfly letter, girl. But when we sat down and talked about this review, we was like, look. We got to add her to the number.
Got to.
We got to add her to the number. We thank you so much for writing this beautiful book. We thank you so much for bearing your soul. We thank you so much for allowing... Ooh, what did I say last week about Beyonce? Now, I ain't talking about Beyonce, but I'm talking about you. You're doing something beautiful for yourself and healing others. That's so... transformative. That's so powerful, and I think that is definitely what we want to see and we want to be in our community. We thank you for this book.
Yes.
If ain't nobody else told you, we gonna tell you we thank you, and we see you, we celebrate you for this book. It was an amazing book. I just telling Kenyatta I gotta double back and read it again because I did not soak up all of the things I needed to soak up from it. I need to go back in those places and hit that soft spot again. So I thank you so much for it. You have something to add to it from Miss Candice?
I agree with you. I just love this book so much, and I plan to dive back into it as well because I know there were parts that I missed and that need to be revisited. I just feel like this was a beautiful symbol of self-love and empowerment and self-reflection, and I'm just grateful to come across authors and bodies of work that give me this feeling, that make me feel so seen and add more value to myself that I already have. I love it.
And last but not least, authors and people in general that make us be courageous and challenging and having questions in the spaces where we are told and shunned from questioning the norm, and allowing us to show up as our most authentic selves. And even when our most authentic selves infuriate and challenge and make other people feel like us being who we are is too much, you make us understand and allow us space to just take up space. And I think that's so important, and I appreciate you.
Yes, I think most authors have a beautiful way of doing that, but it just hit different when it's a Black woman author.
Yes,
because the place that it's coming from. It's kind of like if you know, you know.
Yeah.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know.
And it's just, it feels good. It feels good. And right now, I feel like we both feel so empowered. Like we ready to take over the world now, Candice.
Listen, because no matter, we don't care what hurdles we got to jump to get this episode out. But... we needed it. We needed to be seen. We needed to see you in order to see ourselves. And we thank you. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Well, you guys, as we've closed out our butterfly letters for today, thank you everybody who wrote in. Once again, don't forget to send in your butterfly letters if you want to celebrate someone. And we're going to move on to closing out this episode. This has been a beautiful episode.
It really has been.
Yes. Every hurdle, every laugh, no cry. 1 for us, 0 for the podcast. But yeah, and I'm just thankful to be creating this space with you. I'm thankful to be expanding and growing as a person and holding myself accountable, because I can't hold nobody else accountable if I don't hold myself accountable. So I thank y'all so much for tuning in. Anything else you want to add as we close out?
No, thank you guys for tuning in. And if you like what you saw here, be sure to follow us on all social medias as well as YouTube and all podcast streaming platforms. Yes. We'll have all the information down in the show notes.
All right. Bye. Millennials, check it out.